Hello and welcome to another edition of the ACA Advanced Level webinar. I'm Ali Humphries, Pro Finance, and I'm joined today by George and Stuart, who I'm going to introduce or let them introduce themselves in a moment. But we are just 3 weeks away now from the ACA Advanced Level exams. And for most of you, this is probably quite a different phase of revision since when we last spoke and we last did the webinar. A few weeks ago, many students were still focused on building technical knowledge and identifying gaps. But what we're going to focus on today is things that make the biggest difference between now and exam day. And we're going to talk in depth about some of the papers as well. But before we go into that, I'm going to introduce, firstly, my co-host, George Tatnall. George, tell us a little bit about yourself and what you're doing on the webinar today.
Yeah, hiya. So my name's George. I've been recruiting for audit and accounts professionals for over 10 years. A lot of that time has been spent speaking to ACA studies such as yourselves. I think I can see a few that I know already. So I wanted to join today to help out with the polls and also provide any support in helping you guys feel a bit better about the big exams you've got coming up.
Fantastic. What George doesn't know about audit recruitment can be put on a postage stamp. He is one of my best. I'm also joined by the fabulous Stuart O'Brien-Weeks. Stuart, can you introduce yourself and tell us what you're going to be doing today?
Yeah, sure. So anybody who's not been in one of these meetings before, I'm a tutor. You know what, let me start off. I'm a chartered accountant is what I'll start off with. Qualified back in 2009. And I've started to help other people become chartered accountants since 2010. So I'm in that bit of a grey area now where I can't just say that I've been teaching people for a decade, because it's a lot longer than that. I'm not quite as far as 2 decades, but I'm the best part of 2 decades is kind of the phrase that I seem to be settling on. I work for quite a lot of the big training providers that are out there that some of you might know about. So the likes of the BPP, the First Intuition, the Kaplan. And I deliver across the whole of the ICW qualification, all the way from that baby debit credit course where everybody is caught in bright headlights thinking to themselves, what is this accountancy qualification all about? And then I deliver courses from there all the way up to this advanced level, covering your CR, your SVM, and your case study. So I know the journey that you've been on, I know the stress that you've been going through, and I've helped thousands of students across the past 16 years. I'm going to say reach their potential. There are times when I do wonder where these people have gone over the past 16 years and what people are doing nowadays compared to where they started inside the training room. I'd like to think I've got lots of advice to give you, and if you've got any questions, you can fire them at me. I'm sure Alison's got some questions for me as well. But yeah, that's my background.
Fantastic. Well,
and look guys, at that, there's somebody who knows me already on the chat box.
Oh, really? You are famous. Look at that. Oh, brilliant. How lovely is that?
That is a wonderfully small world, is what that is. Yeah, I enjoyed doing some good work inside the LSE a few years back. Had some fun. Yeah.
Fabulous. Oh. Well, hopefully Stuart can help you again. What we're going to do before we get on to everything is George is going to start us off with a poll. Let's read the room.
Yes. So first up we have, so what have you been spending most of your time doing recently or right now? I know I've been spending a lot of my time in front of the fan with an ice lolly. Yeah, I think this is a bit more about exams.
Let's have a look at these results. Guys, if you can submit your results, that would be really helpful for us. Reviewing technical material. Someone's got exam prep.
Okay, so there's a fair bit of procrastination, which I think is probably understandable at this point. I bet it's a bit, I'm guessing, Stuart, but around this point you probably kind of feel like you've done a lot of the hard work and you're not really sure what best to focus on next. And then obviously if you're still reviewing technical material.
Excellent. Okay, well, thank you. It's good to know where everyone's at. And before we focus on the next 3 weeks, let's quickly recap on some of the biggest themes from our previous webinar. So, Stuart, what are the most important messages that students should still keep at the forefront of their minds before we go on to everything else?
Yeah, so big one at this advanced level and how it differs to your professional level, first of all, is I think students should definitely be thinking inside their exam, what are the high level skills that the examiner is looking from me as a chartered accountant? And I'm going to use the word skills there if I can, rather than technical content. I think a lot of people inside this exam might feel that it is a very technically challenging exam, whether it's CR, case study, or SBM. There's clearly technical knowledge there. But these are the last exams where the ICAW are trying to say, you know what, you are about to be a professionally marketable chartered accountant that can go on to a whole host of different careers in life. And we don't just want you to be technically sound, we want you to have the right high level skill sets as well. So I seem to think last time around, Alison, we talked about the idea that a good chartered accountant should be able to see wider implications of the work that they've done, not just perform work for a client, perform work for a boss, but be able to know that this has a knock-on effect to other parts of the business, other stakeholders of the business, other divisions inside the business, other parts of the finances. And if we can start to see the linkage of this one piece of work to a wider area, we should make commentary about that and be able to show off that higher level of skill. The other one that the ICAW really like is to see that a chartered accountant is skeptical. There's been an awful lot of bad press in the last, 5-6 years for certain accountancy firms that are out there being found out to not necessarily be doing the work that maybe they should have been doing. And the ICAW want to be able to stand proud and say, no, our chartered accountants don't fall foul of that. And one of the things they've been really pushing in recent years is this idea that their chartered accountants can be skeptical. Now, that's not about saying this is wrong and this is wrong and I don't believe you, I don't believe you, but just being alert to the fact that something might not be 100% true. And inside all of our exams, as strange as it might feel at times, there will be opportunities for us to be able to show that skill off. If inside strategic business management, you're looking at the analysis of the financial performance of a company, you might not have all the detail, and having some commentary inside your exam paper about the fact that not all the detail is there is a valid skill set and will remunerate you with some sort of credit. Likewise, corporate reporting, you might not always have a client who is doing the perfect accounting standard, and be able to illustrate and discuss the fact that this might not be the thing that our client should be doing is a high level skill set. So absolutely look out for opportunities inside this exam to show off those higher level skill sets. And we also spoke as well, and we might need to come back to this in a little bit as well, but in terms of time management, how crucial is time management? And again, this is such a soft skill set that can make such a big difference for students inside the exam. Yes, there's technical knowledge to show off. Yes, there's a lot of questions to answer, but we've got to make sure that we've got a plan for our 3.5-hour exam, our 4-hour exam, and we have to have these big alarm bells going that says, if you're not progressing at the right pace through the exam, you're unlikely to make a success of it. So let's make sure that we've got ourselves our design inside our personal exam as to how we're going to manage that time. And I know that my approach to timing of exams is going to be different to other people's because it all depends on where my strengths and my weaknesses might lie. But absolutely, I'm not going to go inside these exams and just hope that the clock looks after itself. I've got to have that plan of attack.
Excellent. I think one of the things that stood out for me from the last webinar was that showing off of everything you've learnt, and that you're really talking about opinions, and opinions matter. Like, there's so, like, we want your opinion as a chartered accountant. You need to show the ICAW that you can advise as a chartered accountant. Now, this isn't an exam where you're getting you pass or fail. This is, are you a chartered accountant or not?
Yeah, so that absolutely fits in with that higher level skill set. At professional level exams, you're very much going through a process and you're showing off, I've got this skill, I've got this skill, I've got this answer, and I've got this answer. Whereas we get to this advanced level and now you are about to become that marketable person. And yeah, one of the higher level skill sets is absolutely puffing your chest out lifting your head up high and realizing that you have got an opinion that deserves to be listened to, and you can tell clients how to improve their business. We might not always feel like that at our place of work in the office when we're surrounded by more senior people who might have their own opinions, but we're about to be at that level. We're about to step up, and the ICW really want to see that we can offer advice to clients. Yeah, absolutely. So high level skill sets for sure.
Absolutely. So that they were the key takeaways from the last webinar, just in case you weren't on there. But focusing on now, what should students be doing now, Stuart?
Yeah, I mean, it's a big, wide question. I think, yeah, I mean, one of the things that we said last time round about how students can get themselves prepped for the exams, we did talk about the fact that these are open book exams, and we did advise students, a number of weeks back, that as you're going through that learning process of the CR course, the SBM course, or even the case study work that you're doing, start thinking about what is useful for you inside the exam. And I think that maybe at this stage, one of the things you could now be doing is testing how good your open book material is that you're going to be taking on into the exam, and just tweaking it and refining it and thinking to yourself, I need a little bit of extra support for this topic area. Now, how do we go about double checking that? It's the old adage of question practice. And I hate saying that as a tutor, because it's almost like every single tutor is going to say to you, it's all about question practice, and there's this magic wand that's out there that will get you through the exam. And I wish that I had that magic wand, but it is all about the question practice, the question practice, the question practice. Now, where I think I could potentially offer the magic wand is to realize that in a perfect world, you would do as much question practice as you possibly can. But in a pragmatic world, what does that actually mean? Especially when you're looking at, let's say, a corporate reporting exam question, which could easily be worth, an hour's worth of your time just to do one question. A strategic business management question, you're looking at 2 hours possibly just to deliver one question. The volume of information can be absolutely huge, and it can be very, very daunting to say, I'm going to do question practice, off I go for the next 17 hours, because that's really quite scary. But I think people don't always appreciate how powerful just reviewing of questions can be, and getting exposure to different questions and different question topic areas. It might not always be a case of you doing a question from scratch, but actually grabbing hold of a question and saying, right, what happened in 2022 in the July sitting? There was this question, it was this topic area, students were expected to do X, Y, and Z. Let's have a look at what the examiner said about this exam question and what topic areas were covered inside this exam. Would I feel confident to have done anything about that question myself? And you don't have to always do something from scratch. Reviewing somebody else's answer and saying, I would have known that, I didn't know that, was my open book material that I'm going to take in the exam, was that helpful for me to answer that question? Can be a really, really big thing to do to make you feel more and more confident as the days progress. It's also really going to help you identify repetitive themes, and there are so many repetitive themes that come up inside the exams that the more questions you look at, the more you're going to realize that maybe there's not a huge amount of surprises that can come your way inside the exam. Yeah, there might be little nuances which are a little bit different, but it will be the same themes coming out over and over again, because every single time an examiner writes an exam, they are testing you. They are not testing the 1,000 students who've sat this exam already. So they need to make sure that you are comfortable with revenue recognition, that you are comfortable with a financial derivative, that you are comfortable with offering commercial recommendations to a client. And so we'll see those things come up over and over again. And by getting the exposure to historical questions, the more you're going to see those patterns coming on through.
Amazing. So perfect world versus real world. There are things you can do there that don't take 17 hours of your time.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know what I'll say is that's definitely from a technical content point of view, getting that exposure. It doesn't need to take 17 hours of your time. Yeah. I think there will always be an element where students want to have a go at a question. One of the things that I often advise my students to do when they're having a go at a question, and I'm not sure how many students appreciate this advice, but I think it is well worth doing, is the idea of practicing your writing skills.
Okay.
Because inside the hothouse of an exam, the 3.5 hours, the 4 hours that you've got, there is so much to do that trying to find your efficient way of writing is a skill set that I don't think many students practice. And I think this comes down to the fact that too many students are trying to do a question from scratch. They're taking 2 hours to do a question from scratch. And when they've done that question from scratch, they're then spending 2 hours trying to work out why they didn't get one number correct. And then they're thinking to themselves, right, now I'll go on and have a look at another question from scratch. And I think reviewing questions can speed up your technical knowledge quite quickly. And then secondary to that, we can focus on the skill set of writing and our skill sets of practicing writing differently. And the advice I give to students is when you've answered a question from scratch, pop it to one side, and then the following day, come back and review that answer and challenge yourself to say, can I now write up that answer to that question in a better way? And when they do, put it to one side again. Come back to it on another day, and again, try and practice again. Can I write that question up in a better way? And all too often, I see way too many students tackling too many questions, that they get confused between the skill sets of writing well and lacking technical knowledge. And if you can split those two things apart by reviewing questions for your technical knowledge and repeating the same question over and over again for your writing skills, you will accumulate those two separate skill sets so that when you go inside the exam, you'll have the technical knowledge to be able to answer a question to the best of your ability. But you also have the important writing skill, which is I can make my point quickly.
Gosh, I think that's excellent advice. I think in life generally, quite often I will look at something I've written and think, did I actually write that? It doesn't make sense.
Oh, so much so.
Yeah.
And many times.
I've been doing this gig for 16 years, and the amount of times that I will look back at something that I wrote 5 or 6 years ago and say, really? I could write that better. And only with that repetitive process do you become better at writing.
And especially with all the AI tools now, people are getting lazier at writing because we've got someone doing it for us. And, all we're having to do is tweak it so it sounds like us. And or we're reciting to a tool, and then it basically puts us into perfect English. So you get out of practice of it on a daily basis, right? Are you finding that, Stuart?
Oh, absolutely. And I mean, I ramble a lot. I'm aware of that when I talk. When it comes to writing inside an exam, I've got 3.5 hours, I've got 4 hours. I've got to get to my point. And if I can do that in 6 words rather than 26 words, I should. And it's going to really help me maximize my marks if I can write efficiently.
Okay, so less is more.
Yeah.
Okay, I think that's excellent advice. Okay, I'm going to move on now to revisiting some of the common pitfalls. When we spoke last time, Stuart, we discussed some common mistakes that students make. What are you still seeing now in some of your students?
It's the perfection. It really is. I think many candidates, many people in this room, I'm sure, you're at the advanced level of your studies. You rightly understand that these are going to be challenging papers, but sometimes I think students put too much pressure on themselves to get that correct answer, and they forget that the ICAW aren't testing whether or not you are the most perfect accountant in the world ever. They are wanting to make sure that you are good enough to be able to call yourself that chartered accountant. And they will let your clients at work decide whether or not you're brilliant. They will let your bosses at work decide whether you're amazing. They'll let your new potential bosses who are trying to recruit you decide whether or not they think you're brilliant. The examining team, they just want to say, yeah, you know what, you've done a good enough job. And I do see way too many students spending so much time with an exam question to get the perfect answer. And then they beat themselves up by not getting the perfect answer, and they don't realize that actually inside that real extreme moment of a 3.5 hour exam, it's unlikely that anybody's going to be perfect. And so you've got to kind of release this pressure and release this tension from yourself. Say, well, let's not get bogged down with any particular point. Let's do the best job that I can do on that question. And when I've done that, and I've spent the right amount of time, which I'll come back to in 2 seconds, I'll move on. And I'll go on to something else, and I'll go on to something else, and I'll go on to something else. A phrase that I've heard one of the examining at the advanced level use is, he said that if you write nothing, you score nothing. And I think there's too many students who spend too long on one part of the exam that they run out of time, and therefore they end up having parts of their exam where they've not been able to write anything because of that time limitation. And if they'd have got to that question, they would have written something, and the likelihood is they would have scored something for it. And I don't want to get too hand gestury here on such a small camera, but every single exam that's out there, you're going to get this kind of reward from an exam whereby if you spend a small amount of time on an exam question, you'll get the majority of the reward that you personally would ever get from that question. And the longer you spend on that question, the less reward you are going to get from it. And what I mean by that is, if you are amazing at a topic area and you get asked about that topic area, you'll score all the marks that you're going to get really, really quickly. Feel free to spend another 5, 10, 15, 20 minutes on it. You're unlikely to score many more marks because you've already got them all because of how good you are at that topic area. You're wasting your time. If it's a weak topic area for you, you spending a short amount of time on that question, well, guess what? You've probably got the majority of marks you're going to get from that question. It might be 1 mark, it might be 2 marks, but any extra time you spend on that question, wasted. You're not going to reach that epiphany inside the exam where all of a sudden that topic area now makes sense to you. You've spent the right amount of time on the question. Don't get bogged down on it. Move on. And often I think doing the basics of a question will surprise people as to how much credit you actually get. You don't need to spend a massive amount of time on any individual requirements to get the majority of marks that you would ever get. So biggest pitfall, without a shadow of a doubt, is getting stuck at some point inside the exam. And I say to my students regularly that sitting an exam is like running on a treadmill. And we all know what happens, that if you're on a treadmill, what happens if you stop at any point in time on a treadmill? You fall off. And that's what happens inside an exam. If you get stuck on one question, you may as well forget it. You may as well walk out of the exam centre there and then. You've got to keep on progressing. You've got to keep jogging and not get bogged down. That, I reckon, is the biggest pitfall. It's okay to get things wrong.
Here's a question actually that I've just thought of as you were talking about this, because I know there's 2 trains of thought. When people are sat down, obviously these exams are very long, and when you get to 3.5, 4 hours, your brain is fried and you're tired. So some people suggest doing the easy questions that they know a lot about first and then tackling the harder stuff later. But then other people are like, no, tackle all the hard stuff first, get everything out of the way while your mind is fresh, and do all the easy stuff later when your mind is tired. Where do you sit on that, Stuart?
So you know what? That's a really, really good question. It might be worth having a few eyes open to this. It really does differ from exam to exam. And I reckon even at this advanced level, we're going to need a different approach. So corporate reporting, for example, I think you can spend time at the beginning of the exam. The logistics is quite tricky because inside the ICAW exam software, you only ever see like question 1 on the screen. And then for you to see question 2, you'd have to click next. And then question 2 would be available, and then click next and see question 3. And so you'd have to spend a few minutes at the beginning of the exam trying to work out what topic areas are being examined in corporate reporting. But I think you can definitely play to your strengths in corporate reporting. If you are comfortable using the data analytics software to be able to identify audit risks and audit procedures, you'll be able to go and find that question and go for it. And you should use your energy at the start of the exam where your strengths lie, in my eyes. I think weaker, more challenging. Oh, sorry, go on.
What I was going to say then, why don't we do a quick poll?
Ooh.
And find out which people are doing, and then we'll get all your advice on paper by paper what key advice and themes should be. George, over to you.
Yes, let's put up the poll on what exams people are doing. I just thought so many of those points were relevant to both exams, but also candidates I've got going through case study interviews as well. So Stuart's actually been helping me prepare my candidates for interview while we're doing this. The efficient writing, so much is relevant. So, okay, great.
What have we got here?
So we've got a pretty heavy response to case study only, or all three. It's pretty much all either case or all three so far.
Anybody here doing strategic business management and corporate reporting only? No. Well, we've got a couple of people doing all corporate reporting only, all three advanced. So let's cover all three if that's okay, Stuart.
So corporate reporting, I think you can play to your strengths, and I think you should spend a bit of time at the beginning of the exam calming your nerves, viewing all the different topic areas, and then saying, right, my strengths lie in this area and this area. If it is the data analytics software, get into it, get those credits whilst you're feeling good about yourself, and just know that the rest of the exam then is going to be where you are surviving rather than passing. You've passed the exam in your strong areas. The rest of the exam is survival mode. And as long as you're doing something for everything, you're scoring something for everything, and you've already got the majority of marks in the bag from those comfortable areas. And because corporate reporting has such explicit areas, you can do that review and you can say, I'm going to tackle this. If you open up question one and realize there's a question about leases and you're good at leases, bang, you're in there. If there's a question about pensions and you hate pensions, you're out of there and you're moving on separately. There are really distinct areas. And so that works for that. For SBM and case study, nah. To be honest with you, nah. I think SBM is strategic business management is such a wide open area, and all the exam questions are so different that for that one, you just got to go for question one and just say, off I go. What do I need to do requirement one? What do I need to do requirement two? What do I need to do requirement three? And just keep on going. Your strategic business management examiner would be happy for you to answer question one and question two in whichever order you wanted. So you could go for question two first, but I don't think there's a point. What the strategic business management examiner has said, however, is that he expects all the students to work through each of the individual questions in the order that he's written it. So if you're doing question one, you better make sure you do part one first, then part two first, then part three first. And the reason why he said that is because he expects you to be accumulating the knowledge as you work through those exams. He does give you a lot of information, and he doesn't expect you to read all of that information at the start. He expects you to read the information piecemeal, but it does mean that when he gets to the fifth requirement, he's expected that you will have read through parts 1, 2, 3, and 4, delivered something for parts 1, 2, 3, and 4, and that could influence your answer in part 5. And you might look a little bit silly if you say something in part 5 which isn't coherent with your part 1, 2, 3, and 4 because you jumped in there first and did that first. So I think SBM, you do it in order. And then when it comes down to the case study exam, you're definitely doing that one in order as well, because again, the examiner expects this cumulative knowledge process, and there might be things that you are calculating in requirement 1, which then become very, very pertinent in requirement 2 and requirement 3, and it helps you explore points and justify points and maybe be skeptical, as we said earlier on. That's a big one inside case study. When you get into requirement 2 and requirement 3 and you're being asked to look at these financial opportunities, it's really, really useful for you to say that figure there doesn't look quite right based on what I analysed inside requirement 1. And the ICW will go giddy at the knees when they see that you've linked your earlier analysis to your later analysis. So yeah, it's a bit of a dull answer, that one, to be honest with you, Alison, because it's not very imaginative, but yeah, it's do it in order.
No, I think it's excellent. And I think the from when you're telling me that, I'm like, oh yeah, of course, because that's where their skepticism can come in.
Yeah.
Because they can say, because actually, if this is the case, then we shouldn't be doing this. And I think that's a really good opportunity for the students to show off their knowledge and that they've gone, aha, something's not adding up right here.
I mean, how amazing would you look inside any client report if you had a second task for your clients to do where they were looking at something, the case you're looking at acquiring another company, and you're looking at acquiring another company for 1.4 million. And you know, because 2 hours ago you did some work on the finances, that company's only got £300,000 worth of spare cash. You look amazing when you say to your client, look, this acquisition absolutely looks brilliant to do. You should go for it because financially it makes sense. It's going to bring lots of things to your business. But before you do, you need to go and find the money because you haven't got the money.
Yeah.
And that skill set only comes if you've worked through the exam in order.
Yeah. Such great advice. I hope everybody is getting this great advice. I'm not even sitting my ACA exams, and I think this is really good knowledge to have. Are there any other key advice or themes for each of the papers at this stage before we move on to the next part?
Yeah, I mean, we've got the corporate reporting. Was somebody only doing the corporate reporting, and a few people do all three of them. I mean, with corporate reporting, doing the review of past papers will massively reveal, like I said earlier on, the key themes that come up all the time. So I personally wouldn't be going inside this corporate reporting exam freaking out whether or not I know every single accounting standard, every single auditing standard or methodology of collecting evidence that is out there, because I know that an exam won't be written where they pick up all the niche topic areas. It's the big topic areas, which is what's going to get me through this exam. So making sure that I feel comfortable about long-term revenue recognition. And I think for the people who are doing corporate reporting, you'll have seen some advanced information already, and that's massively pushing you in the direction of saying, let's make sure we know about long-term revenue recognition, contract assets, contract liabilities. And it comes up so often that you can literally like go back to the November sitting last year and read the first question from the corporate reporting paper, and you'll see that topic area there as well. And so being prepped for that topic area, being prepped for leases, provisions, foreign exchange, these are standard things that come up. And even if something weird comes up about pensions, for example, it's like, well, maybe that's not your 50%. You've got your 50% from those key topic areas already. So know your key accounting standards and know the basics of the key accounting standards. Yes, there'll be some tricky bits, but the tricky bits will be worth 1, 2, 3 marks. The basics will be getting you that 50%. Also, for the corporate reporting students, knowing your data analytics software for audit. There are so many just standard things. It gets boring when you've reviewed enough exams. It's like, oh, a company has recognized the cash receipt and they recognize the revenue too early. Surprise, they shouldn't be recognizing that revenue yet. Oh, they've got some receivable inside their accounts that they've forgotten to impair. Let's make sure they impair it. So corporate reporting, it's all about just picking up those big themes and saying, do I feel comfortable enough with those big themes? In terms of strategic business management, I think it's about writing skills that needs to be practiced there. I think it's such a wide, varied exam that for you inside the strategic business management exam, you need to have a broad range of ideas that you can churn out really quickly. And I think people would surprise themselves if they did practice writing that you can make a point in 1 or 2 sentences and then move on to something else. Make a point in 1 or 2 sentences, move on to something else. And I think the big thing that I would have said on our last meeting is that the ICW really appreciate chartered accountants who can look at things from a wide variety of angles. And that's what we need to be able to do inside SBM. We need to look at things from a wide variety of angles in 1 or 2 sentences, 1 or 2 sentences, 1 or 2 sentences. I think as well, with regards to the likes of SBM, again, it is playing to your strengths and looking at how the syllabus is broken up and working out where do I want to get my 50% from. I always tell my SBM students, assurance, 10 marks, yes, please. Ethics, 10 marks, yes, please. I'd even say talking about your accounting standards inside strategic business management, 10 marks, yes, please. And then if you've got a gift of the gab and you can professionally deliver some strategic points in 1 or 2 sentences, you've got yourself another 10 marks. And that's 40 marks without even trying. And then the rest of the exam is you just working out where do I get my other 10 marks from by doing a little calculation here and a little calculation there. So skill sets of writing and delivering the points for SBM is where I would focus my effort and not get too bogged down in all the technicalities that might appear inside SBM. It's much more qualitative than people sometimes think with regards to SBM. So having the skill set of writing is crucial. In terms of case study, for the few people who are only doing case study, in terms of the key themes to cover there, I'm hoping that people are getting into the advanced information for case study. I'd absolutely advise every single student to break down the components of the management review for the 2025 accounts sentence by sentence, because that is your structure for 30 marks inside the exam. For your first task, requirement 1, you know you're going to be writing up a review of your most recent 2026 management accounts. Why not use the 2025 format as your structure? You change the numbers, you might change a little bit of the story because you've been updated the story, but if you know the structure of requirement 1 before you get anywhere near the exam, bang, you're through it really quickly. I can guarantee anybody in the room here, the vast majority of students who fail case study, it's because they spent way too long trying to work out how to write requirement 1 because of how many things could be said. But if you know that you've read your 2025 management accounts long before the exam, you know your structure, you know what you're delivering, 40 minutes into the exam, you're probably done with requirement 1, and you've now got 3 hours to focus your effort on requirement 2 and requirement 3, which, again, for those students who've got that case study coming, you'll know it is about the acquisition and valuing the acquisition of another events company. You'll know it's about the mechanics of putting in another events management event. Using the word events way too many times there. And I'd advise students with that to be looking throughout your entire advanced information, the 40 pages that you've got, to find all the snippets of information about what could impact the valuation of the company, what could impact the event being successful. You'll be surprised how many snippets of information there are inside the other 35 pages of the advanced information that link to just those 5 pages. So trying to find all the bits and bobs which link to those key topic areas is what I think is crucial for success in that exam.
And it's so hard, isn't it? There are so many things that can impact evaluation that are not even finance related. And is it worth people looking at that and thinking it's the non-finance stuff? Is that?
Absolutely. And so for the people who are doing case study, you'll know, I hope already, there is 2 or 3 pages in the advanced information that shows you the mechanics of how to value another events management company. That is the boring bit. That is so mechanical. That is relatively straightforward. As you say, Alison, it's all the non-financial things that could be impacting the valuation of that company, which is elsewhere inside the advanced information that you want to pick up. So for example, and this is really specific, but we get told that the owner of our clients is really keen to make sure any event is neurodiverse friendly. And elsewhere inside the advanced information, there's lots of hints as to why an event might be conducted which isn't inclusive for neurodiverse people. And there's an example of another source where another events management company has just received an award for their neurodiverse friendly events. And if you get asked on the day of the exam to value a company which is going to help support your ability to put on neurodiverse events, surely that company is worth more because of that. Not just the mechanics, not just the numbers, not just their profits figure, but because it helps you with your strategy. And we've got to make sure we see those little elements elsewhere inside the advanced information and how they feed in to what is looking a very simplistic calculation.
That's a great example you've used there. I think very helpful for all of us here going, yeah, no, you're right, because it's all the non-financial stuff that will help.
Non-financial stuff, yeah.
Brilliant. Okay. I hope that's been very helpful for everybody. We're going to just take a moment, see how everyone's feeling now. George, can we get another poll up, please?
Yes. Yeah. So if it was me, I know this would probably change by the half hour, but let's have a look at how everyone's feeling now. Okay. Nervous but coping so far. cautiously optimistic.
Oh, I like it.
I like that.
Good.
Okay. It's a bit of a mix. There's no one completely overwhelmed. No one 100%.
Thankfully.
Probably quite normal.
Thankfully, no one's too anxious or too overwhelmed, which is really good. Okay, so talking now, Stuart, about balancing work commitments, family life, revision.
Mm-hmm.
How should people approach the next 3 weeks?
And we can probably link that into the fact that a few of you are nervous but coping along the way at the moment. And the World Cup going on the go there as well.
And the heat.
We absolutely need to make sure we're using our time properly. And I think from earlier on, we asked the question about how many people were procrastinating. I know when I was a student, procrastination was a really big thing. And just one of the soft skill sets that I personally feel really works in my own personal life is having that framework put in place that says, this is when I'm doing work, this is when I'm not doing work, is so important, because the amount of times that I fret when I'm not doing work, that I should be doing work, I should be doing some revision, and that eats up so much mental space that you should be doing some work, you should be doing some work. It's like, no, you should be eating. You should be watching Scotland versus Brazil tonight at whatever time it might be. And you should release yourself of that tension and be like, I'm okay, I'm in a good position. And I think what can really help you to make sure that you're saying to yourself, I'm in a good position, is having that frame of time where you say, I'm going to do corporate reporting for the next 2 hours on a Saturday morning to focus on corporate reporting. And for those 2 hours, you're not focusing on what do I need to learn? What do I need to learn? What have I got missing? What have I got missing? You're giving yourself that pat on the back and recognizing that actually you'll have gone through an awful lot just to be in this position at the moment. You'll have so much knowledge to be where you are. And I think reviewing what you know and being proud of what you know does release an awful lot of anxiety and an awful lot of tension. If you review a lease question from Corporate Reporting Question Bank, and you think to yourself, I knew that, I knew that, I knew that, I didn't know that, I didn't know that, but I knew that, and I knew that, and I knew that. There'll be too many students who focus on those two elements that they didn't know, that they freak out. And then they skip over the fact that there was 8 things that they did know and would have accumulated credit. And I think sometimes when we're building, you know what, we're 3-4 weeks before the exam, and having that confidence embedded into you now to say, I do know my stuff, I do know my stuff. So what if you don't know how a forward contract should be accounted for? It's 5 marks inside the exam. What are the 95 marks going to do for you? You're not going to get an exam which tests all of your weak spots. So give yourself that reward that says, I do know my stuff, and make sure you're focusing on what you do know rather than scared about what you don't know about. I think you also need to find that balance about what you're working. I think we've got a few people who are just doing the case study, and so your focus is just case study. But for the people who are doing all 3, I think you do need to structure yourself to be like, where am I focusing my time on this? And this, I'm scared I'm going to say something in case it is one of my students here, but I noticed recently on Reddit, there was a post by somebody saying, anybody doing any work on the case study just yet? I'm not sure what's to do with it. I'm also pretty much ignoring strategic business management at the moment. And somebody else would comment and say, yeah, me too. It's okay. There's clearly lots of procrastinators out there, but there is going to be a priority list. And I think if you're doing all 3 at the moment, corporate reporting will be your priority because it is so technical, and you've got to have that confidence about those core technical content. You'll probably then be thinking to yourself, now SBM, and I've got to do some work on SBM from a writing skill point of view. I think case study is going to be the lower priority if you're doing all 3, because it is such a skills-based bit of work that there's not a huge amount of prep that you can do for it in comparison to the papers. So A, reward yourself for the work that you do know about, and B, don't be afraid of structuring your priority list and saying, I am going to prioritize these topic areas. And then make sure you've got that time to yourself to say, this isn't my work time now. This is my feeding time. This is my sleeping time. This is my seeing my family time, and that's okay.
Absolutely. And I suppose making sure that your family are very clear on when you're working, when you're revising. having a champion is so important, isn't it? As opposed to people who are like, oh, I can't believe you're doing that instead of watching this movie with me.
Yeah. I mean, being very open and honest with you, these are the most challenging exams that you're probably ever going to do in your life. I mean, I do remember doing my own chartered accountancy, and this might be your own situation as well, but I was standing outside the exam hall at the time, waiting to be let in, and I remember thinking to myself, I've done pretty well in life. I did pretty well with my qualifications at school, at college, did all right at university, but yeah, I'm now standing outside an exam room, and I feel like I've done the most amount of work that I've ever done in my life for an exam, but yet I feel the most underprepared that I've ever felt as well. And it is a really big challenge, and having people around you buy into the fact that this is actually really important. Stop messing with me. I'll be back out the other side second week of July. Just let me sort myself out until I get to that point in time, and support me. So if you see me watching Hollyoaks or Pointless, you tap me on the shoulder and say, is this what you're supposed to be doing? Because I thought we were going to the pub tonight to watch Ghana, or whatever else it may well be instead. So having the support network around you appreciate the situation you're in is so important. Yeah.
Love that, Stuart. Thank you. It leads us quite nicely on to where we're going to finish, actually, and finishing with mindset. What should students be telling themselves over the next few weeks?
You know what? You could sum it up simply as just, you're amazing. That's the mindset to be in. You are, without a shadow of a doubt, amazing people, and you can't underestimate that. You probably might not always feel it, because, and this is the big thing to be alert to, you're surrounded by intelligent people at your place of work. You might not always feel like it, but you probably are. You're surrounded by other students who might be going through the same boat as you, who are clearly intelligent people, and you're surrounded by a network of intelligent people. And there might be times where your friend knows a bit more about something than you do. Your bosses might have a bit of an awareness about something that you don't, and that makes you maybe feel a bit nervous. But that's because you're surrounding yourself with peers. To be where you are in life, to be at the advanced level of the ICAW qualification, absolutely. You are amazing people. You know so much stuff. You've gone through so much anguish already, and you should make sure you reflect on that and say, yeah, I've got this. I am good enough to pass this exam, no matter whether or not you're nervous but coping, whether or not you're feeling cautiously optimistic. You should be confident because of how brilliant you are. And I'll tell you an anecdote. I forget the exact person's position, and I'll apologize, I can't even remember his name. I went to a big bit of a shindig maybe about a year or so ago, where the ICAW were kind of talking to people who basically just finished their professional level exams. It was a bit of a shindig, a bit of a wine drinking event, and they were rewarding people and talking to these students who've just finished their professional level and were kind of going on to their advanced level. And this examiner from the ICAW, and as a senior examiner is what he was, he kind of overviewed everything, is he stood up and he made sure that everybody realized how brilliant they were to get through the professional level. And he did say it's like 98% of people who get through the professional level go on to become chartered accountants. Now, I've got to be careful when I say it, because obviously there will be people who try to do the exam for the first time and they're not successful. It's not going to come naturally to you. But you are such intelligent people that you can pass these exams. And 98% of people who are at this level do go on to pass these exams. And so I think from a mindset point of view, it is about knowing how amazing you are and going into that exam. Like I said earlier on, you'll go such a long way with your chest puffed out and your head up high, and knowing that people deserve to listen to you. That will take you a long way inside this exam.
Amazing. And I think one of the things you also said, it's not, the goal isn't becoming a different student and having different knowledge. It's showing the examiner what you already know. Like, I love that, what you said.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. I think I said earlier on, the examiner doesn't know who you are. The examiner has seen thousands and thousands of students go through this qualification so far, but you are a fresh page, and they want to see who you are as a person, and standing up with your chest puffed out and your head up high and saying, I can deliver. It's going to sound, I can deliver the basics. Now that sounds terrible, but that's what the ICW want from you. And if you've got your chest held out and your head high and you're delivering those basics confidently, the examiner's going to nod, they're going to smile, and they're going to put a big green tick next to the work that you've delivered. And you're going to get through these exams and move on with the rest of your lives.
Absolutely. If you've got any question, guys, whilst I wrap up, please pop them in the chat. The final takeaway for me, after everything you've said, Stuart, is I suppose don't spend the next 3 weeks worrying about what's going to come up, because you can't. Trust your prep, keep writing, keep practicing, and remember, it's not about perfection. You just need enough marks to pass. I think that's like a very simple message. And Stuart's given you some really, really pragmatic tips here on how to get 10 here, 10 here, 10 here. And then all you've got to do is look for the other 10. You know, I think it's really practical. Thank you for your time. I don't think we've got any questions coming up here. Guys, if you have any questions and you'd like to reach out to myself, George or Stuart on LinkedIn or by email, please feel free to. Thank you for your time today, Stuart and George, for hosting our lovely polls. Thank you.
No worries at all.
And thank you for everybody who has attended today. We really appreciate your time. Thank you. Go and enjoy the sunshine.
Thanks, everyone.
And
Thanks,
good
everyone.
luck.
Thank you.
Good luck.